Welcome to the farm.
Welcome to the farm. I'm Justin, and recently we've been doing a series on our Duramax here, doing head gasket replacement on it. And the last video in that series, I got this thing fired up running. It sounds real good. Unfortunately, there's still a little bit of a fuel leak. It appears to be leaking on the top of the engine and then running down the backside of the engine, dripping into our catch pan. I can't really see anything from the top, but today we're going to see if we can't figure out what the issue is and get it fixed. We're going to start by starting the truck up, letting it run a little bit, and see if we can see where this thing's leaking from without taking anything apart. So hopefully you guys can see in that clip that we have a pretty decent fuel leak here. I can't really see anything looking with a flashlight through the top here, so I think unfortunately we're just going to have to start removing some of the intake pieces off, open some stuff up, and just see what's wet and see if we can determine what's leaking. Unfortunately, once I start removing all those pieces, I can't just turn it on and run it to see fuel spurting out. So hopefully it'll be something obvious. Let's start taking some stuff back off the engine. All right, so with the intake on, I took some time and kind of looked through here, and I can see a lot of the lines. I can see most of the two fuel rails. I don't see any leaking on the fuel rails or most of my line connections up here in the front. There are some line connections that are up underneath this EGR crossover tube and this EGR itself, which means I may have to pull those out. And to pull those out, I'm probably going to have to drain the coolant. I may have to get this alternator here out of the way to get at the bottom bolt on the EGR, and if I got to pull that alternator, that means I got to pull this fan shroud to get the bolt out for the alternator, get the alternator out of the way. So this may end up being a process here, but first thing I need to do will be drain out the coolant. So I got the coolant drained, I can work on removing this EGR tube down here. The first thing I'm going to do though is take this cross-off tube off the top. So up next I want to remove this EGR tube, which I don't think will be too big of an issue. I got 4 bolts over here on this side, which I think I can get at all 4, and I got 4 bolts over here. The issue is there's one down back behind there underneath, and with the alternator in the way, which is right back here off screen, I don't know if I can get at that bolt or not, and taking that alternator out is going to be a pain. I'm hoping I can do it without having to take it out, but we'll see. As much as I don't want to, I think I'm going to end up having to take out the 2 alternators and swing this compressor out of my way. I got the 3 bolts out of the top of this part of the EGR. Unfortunately, there's one back down here. I've been trying for 10 minutes or so. I can't even get a socket on it. And I think I have a lot straighter shot if I get this alternator out of the way. And then to get at the bottom bolt on this other side, I think having this alternator out of the way will just make it so much easier. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Take the time, pull those out, get them out of the way, and hopefully I can get this EGR out. So with all the EGR removed, I still can't see anything in here that looks like it's leaking fuel. It's really hard to tell, but I think what I'm going to do to check the rest of the lines that go up underneath here is pull out this intake crossover tube. I really do not want to pull this out because it is a pain, but I think that's what I need to do to see if I missed connecting something up underneath here. So with the intake cross tube out, I can look down in that valley. Everything looks really dry. Followed the lines back. Everything looks like it's tight. So we did a little experimenting with some water. We dumped a little bit of water next to this fuel rail and let it run down along the valve cover to see where it was leaking. And then we also dumped a little water in the valley here to see where that would leak out. When we dumped water in the valley, nothing leaked. It just puddled up right there. But when we dumped a little bit of water next to the fuel rail, that ran out and basically leaked exactly where the fuel is leaking, which leads me to believe that the fuel rail is what's leaking. So we ended up removing 2 of these fuel lines here right up at the front, and one of them ended up having some corrosion on the line itself and inside the fitting. Hoping that's our issue. We're going to go ahead, put this all back together, start it up, and see if we still have a fuel leak or not. I'm really, really hoping not. So we got the truck all back together, ready to test our repair. I don't really think it's going to do much. I still think we're going to have a leak, but we won't know until we start it up and test it. So let's do that. All right, well, it's running again. It sounds good. There's no miss or anything, so let's wait a few minutes and see if we got a fuel leak still. Well, surprisingly, that took care of our fuel leak issue, so no more fuel leak. I'm really, really excited about that. However, we let this thing run a lot longer than we did last time, let it warm up, and I think we might have excessive blow-by. And we've also got a couple engine codes, some EGR codes came up, and turbo vane learn code came up. So I don't know what that's about. If you guys have any ideas, let me know. I'm gonna have to do some more research and see if we can't figure this out. Maybe I just missed plugging something in. I don't know. We'll have to see. So the next day I decided to come out. I cleared the engine codes with my scan tool. I put the tires back on and I drove it. I've actually ran it for a couple weeks now, including a 5-hour round trip in one day. And the blow-by has pretty much gone away. The engine codes have not come back on. I'm wondering if the engine codes weren't something to do with the way the coolant was circulating, because I did not have the coolant cap on while I was heating it up. And maybe the coolant just wasn't circulating through the EGR and the turbo enough. But anyway, I've run it for 3 or 4 weeks now. I have well over 500 miles on it, and we have no issues and hardly any blow-by, so I'm calling this a success. Hopefully you guys found this series entertaining. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.